Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of Hera 2025 and Happy New Year. Today we're going to be looking at the ongoing back and forth between Mr. Peter Obi and the APC Publicity Secretary, which obviously translates to the APC and Peter Obi and everything that's been happening. So we would start by playing the recording of what happened or the conversation that's kind of led us here. So take a listen.
No. He is the one that's throwing that. Mr. Obi is shooting from the hip. He's not looking. He's not taking an aim. He just, shoots widely like, what we used to see in movies back in the day, in the Wild Wild West. He is not being rational. He's absolutely irrational in his thinking and in his public commentary for a man who was governor for 8 years, who left nothing to remember in Anambra State by way of a legacy or transformation. But all of a sudden, he served as governor 8 years. He didn't have the wisdom or the smarts to change Anambra State, to make Anambra the beacon, that example of, governance in the country. But then, he runs for president, in 2023. And then now, he didn't win. He's sulking. Rather than actually get a perspective and figure out what he did to lose so he can do better in the future, he would think that he can bring down the government by simply being maliciously deceptive. That is wrong. I'm not somebody to to go on that offensive in that manner. But Mr. Obi has crossed the line so many times, and I think that at this point, he has coming to him whatever he gets. He needs to manage it.
Okay, so now, obviously, there was a question to that initial video. So he was actually reacting to a question that was thrown at him. But to give us a little bit of context before we get to the question that was thrown at him, before that, I'm going to read Peter Obi's tweet for you that actually said, "Did I cross the line?" So remember the line where the spokesperson said that he has crossed the line and whatever he has coming or whatever it is coming. Okay, so I'm going to read the tweet that Mr. Peter Obi, just a part of it, so that we can understand probably where all this is coming from. It says, have I really crossed the line? So that's in response to the video from Mr. Morka. I asked the question because my New Year message has now led to threats against my life, my family, and those around me. While I have received all sorts of messages on messages, one Mr. Felix Morka has gone further to accuse me of crossing the line and has warned that I will face the consequences. And then he points us back to the YouTube video link where he actually made the New Year's recordings about 20-something minutes. You could go listen to it if it gives you better context. And then it says, we're increasingly transforming into an authoritarian and repressive regime where freedom of expression is systematically, sorry, I probably missed the other part of it, but I'll get it before I might post this video. So that's that. And then I would go back to the APC's response to give you also a context, especially a context in relation to the video, the question that was asked in that earlier video. Okay, so it says and states, said on his verified official, so the title is All Progressives Congress, Peter Obi, you lied. Morka did not threaten your life. And so it's also good to note that the person writing it, obviously the Morka is the National Publicity Secretary, so he's responding to, on behalf of the umbrella APC now. He said on his verified official X handle, Mr. Peter Obi, former governor of Anambra State and presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023 general elections, has alleged in his own words that my New Year message has now led to threats to my life, my family, and those around me. So that's what I read according to what was said. Then it goes on to say, ostensibly, Mr. Obi's allegation is in reference to Morka's answer to a question during an interview on Arise TV's This Week program on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. To be clear, and for the record, Morka did not threaten Mr. Obi or his family or those around him or anyone. Morka has absolutely no reason to and has never threatened Obi or anyone. Nothing that Morka said in that interview or any other forum remotely contains or suggests threats against Mr. Obi or anyone else, as the verbatim transcription of the relevant indisputably attest. So now I'm going to be reading this thing, because obviously we've heard the question, we've heard the answer. Let's just read the question. The question from the Arise TV was, you have actually hit back with a volley of attacks, calling Peter Obi a prophet of doom. Some of you have said he's always embarking on voodoo economics that are not in line with current realities. Don't you think that is a slingshot that has gone beyond normal politicking? Now that is where he goes on to respond in the video we just looked at just now. So I'm also going to pick on the response. Of course, a lot of Nigerians have been having different response to what has happened and why and whether it was a threat or not. That's another issue, but I'm going to also look at Mr. Atiku Abubakar's response to that. It says, the inflammatory remarks issued by the publicity secretary of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Felix Morka, directed at Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the last generation, served as a disturbing emblem of the current administration's unsettling strategy in addressing opposition figures. This threat against Peter Obi, coupled with the prolonged detention of Mahdi Yusuf, which is another person who criticizes the government, a prominent voice of dissent, and other, signals a worrisome shift towards an authoritarian governance model where the rights of opposition voices are being suffocated. So now when we come back to what Peter Obi also said in that in his own initial tweets, talking about how now we are becoming, obviously getting to a point where being authoritarian and the repressive regime that has kind of been what a lot of people have been saying as a kind of, I won't call it a hallmark, but something that has defined the Tinubu administration. I know sometimes when we would joke and be like, oh, let's not get to the point where we would miss Buhari, but I think Nigerians have really gotten to that point where anybody who says anything that is not favorable or in line with the government, a lot of people come to attack them. You've had several times, I think currently there's somebody who is still in detention because she said something that was not favorable to the president's son. So, you know, those kind of situations are kind of unsettling for a country who practices democracy, or as Dele to me would say, let's pretend like we're practicing democracy. Let's act like the rule of law matters, even though we all know it doesn't, but let's just act like it, and then sometimes just get to where we need to get to as every Nigerian is trying. I think, again, for me, maybe what's happening with Mr. Peter Obi is that, and it's unsettling for them, is what I would call telling kind of saying truth to power, like what you're doing is not helping the people. You know, at some point I'll look at the policies and it ways they keep changing, and I'm like, where are they headed? Like, what's the end game? Because sometimes if there's a plan, we're like, okay, you can suffer for a period of time, and then when things get sorted, so you ask the question, where is the government headed? Do they know where they are headed? And I remember a friend just told me, like, they are going nowhere. They don't know where they are going to. But again, we don't know, right? They have their own plans, and they'll keep telling you that these are the plans. So I feel like it's unsettling for them that these conversations are being heard. Peter Obi obviously is really engaging. This is kind of what we would call a very active opposition. You may not like his style, but at least he's keeping someone on the toes. You rarely see anybody attacking Atiku. You rarely see anybody attacking Showore. You rarely see them attacking Kwankwaso. But because Peter Obi hasn't left the scene, he's actively in the scene, he's actively in the news. He's going around distributing things for people, giving people monies. And obviously, anybody who doesn't know that, that's also a form of strategy of getting his messages across. And actually, he's going towards the north again. And with the fact that the president has been having issues with obviously, let's say, his northern coalition because of bills that they feel were threatening to the region. You heard the governor of Borno State, Zulum, come out clearly to state his opposition to the bill and how he believes it is targeted at northerners and all that. And you've also recently heard the governor of Bauchi State during his Christmas. So these have very strong critics, you know. And for Zulum, he's part of the APC. You can argue that the governor of Bauchi State is in the opposition, but one thing is unanimous, that their cracks or their hold of northern Nigeria, or the far north, so to speak, I won't say northern Nigeria, I'll say the far north, so to speak, it's not as strong as they would want to. And it might just be an unsettling situation that this man keeps penetrating these places that they feel they already have a strong hold. Obviously, it's shaky, and he's going to obviously take advantage of it. So anything to make him a doomsday prophet, or whatever it is they want to call him, they would continue to do that. So yeah, this is what has been happening, and I know a lot would happen again in the coming days as to, was there really a threat? Because that's the question. Was there really a threat in that video? When you say he has crossed the line, what do you mean by he has crossed the line? What do you also mean by he's going to face the consequences? What kind of consequences does somebody face for speaking truth to power? And obviously they still feel like he's doing all this, according to them, sulking in quotes, because he lost the presidential election. But interestingly, this was an election where even in Lagos State, where you would call the current president's stronghold, Mr. Peter Obi won in Lagos State. Obviously the North Central, he won in Plateau State, he won in Nasarawa State. So he had a very good outing in the North Central, and so if those divisions between Kwankwaso, Atiku was not there, there was a very high chance that the current president wouldn't be the president, even though we know that there were a lot of cases of intimidation in certain strongholds of theirs and all that. But again, nobody's saying anything, but we're just saying there were kind of intimidation that people couldn't go out, and you could see them kind of actively intimidating people, but nobody dares to say anything. But if somebody from the opposition says something they do not like, they are picking them up. So yes, what's your take on this? And would you really think there was a threat to Mr. Peter Obi's life? What would you see him do going forward with what has happened? I've seen calls, I've seen people say, oh, we should actually have a kind of international press conference and really speak to what's been happening. But again, the APC is already calling him a liar and that he was not threatened. So yeah, let's see how it plays out in the coming days. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you some other time. Bye-bye.